So Avatar has broken even literally right now. Today it broke even with $1.5 billion, and that does mean more Avatar movies are on the way. So this is just as a bit of an update on the box office, which I've been doing. You know, this is a tentpole movie. It's a blockbuster, as it were. So we've got to cover it. Now, the interesting fact about this, which the likes of Deadline never actually picked up on, but I did, was James Cameron actually came out and corrected himself and said, no, I misspoke. It's not $2 billion to break even. Soz. It's not the 5th highest. It's more like the 10th, which, like I said, would put it at $1.5 billion, which means now it's broken even. So it's going into profit now, and as a result of that, it will pave the way for sequels. So let's just take a look at this first. So Avatar: The Way of Water moves up to number 9th on all-time global chart with $1.547 billion. So Friday update, which is today. Rising again on the all-time global box office chart, James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water has jumped into the number 9th slot, with Thursday's grosses included. As presaged yesterday, it has overtaken The Avengers' $1.521 billion, now having surfed to nearly $1.547 billion worldwide, and getting there in 23 days of release, which is insane. That's great. Like, no one can take that away from it. Whatever you think of the movie, that's really good. So the Na'vi sequel from 20th Century Studios and Disney, because obviously this is greenlit under 20th Century Studios, but then Disney bought Fox, so there you go. Continues to stand as the number 2 international box office release of the pandemic era with $1 billion, well, basically $1 billion, through Thursday. It is closing in on number 1 title of the past 3 years. Spider-Man No Way Home did $1.1 billion, and will also shortly pass the pre-pandemic gross of The Lion King, which is $1.118 billion overseas. So, yeah, I mean, it did really well. It did really, really well. In fact, it sort of trounced Megan, which, this was like a viral hit. So I am surprised by this. Now, loads of people will be like, why are you surprised? Just because it was viral, Like, this was everywhere. Whereas Avatar, I don't hear about it. There was a lot of chatter about Megan. A lot of chatter. But there hasn't really been a lot about Avatar. It is interesting. Like, it's one of those things that, Avatar seems to be one of those things that people just watches and, and enjoys and continues to go and watch. But this is, of course, it's a PG-13 as well, so that does matter. Although, was Avatar? I think Avatar 2 was PG-13, actually. Sorry. That doesn't count. $2.75 million. Not great. That's not a good opening. So Avatar has absolutely trounced that. But it has done well. Critics gave Megan a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. And now, it is fairly good theatres, but of course Avatar's taking a lot of those theatre screens because Avatar opened up on the most theatres that Disney's ever had. So let's get to this. So James Cameron has said that Avatar: The Way of Water will break even. It will. Now it has. Paving the way for future sequel releases. Just as an FYI, where the video clip of James Cameron saying he misspoke and it's, the 10th highest grossing of all time it needs to be, that was over on our box office over on Reddit. There was a video over there, which again, Deadline, mainstream media, you get paid to do this stuff. You should be on it, but you're not. Pretty embarrassing. Someone sat in their house knows more about this than you do. James Cameron believes Avatar: The Way of Water will break even and is confident Disney will proceed with the sequels. It has broken even. So had Avatar 2 not been a moneymaker, there was a question about whether Cameron would realise his full vision of 3 more sequels, despite the fact that he's been in production on them. So Cameron comments were on the latest episode of Who's Talking to Chris Wallace. The 3-time Oscar-winning filmmaker also clarified statements he made to GQ magazine. He told them back in November that the sequel would need to be the 3rd or 4th highest grossing movie in history just to break even. Those picks all grossed over $2 billion. Cameron told Wallace, I never actually gave it a number. I said it has to be amongst the highest grossing films in history. No, he did. And somebody else applied that number and it got picked up. Okay, so you're literally saying that someone at GQ gave the number. The number is actually less, which he has come out and clarified, by the way. Like I said, he literally clarified it in a video, the 10th highest grossing of all time. That's what he said. 1.5. That is 1.5 billion. So Avatar: The Way of Water stands at 1.54 billion worldwide, having just passed Top Gun Maverick as the top grossing release of 2022. It's also the 9th grossing movie ever, and the 2nd top grossing film of the pandemic after Spider-Man No Way Home, which I've just already covered as well. But Cameron spoke to Wallace and he said, look, it looks like with the momentum that the film has now that we'll easily pass our break even in the next few days. That's the 1.5 billion. So there you go. Everyone's saying, we're taking him out of context and all this garbage. No, he's confirming what's happened, what I've said, what he's also re-clarified. The break-even point was 1.5 billion. So he said, so it looks like I can't wiggle out of this and I'm going to have to do these other sequels, Cameron told Wallace. I know what I'm going to be doing the next 6 or 7 years. Cameron also said about the sequels break even. The point is, we're going to be okay. I'm sure that we'll have a discussion soon with the top folks at Disney about the game plan going forwards for Avatar 3, which is already in the can. We've already captured and photographed the whole film. So we're in extended post-production to do all that CG magic. And then Avatar 4 and 5 are both written. So loads of people keep saying he'd shot stuff about Avatar 4. He hasn't. It's literally just Avatar 3 that he's made. Avatar 4 and 5 are both written. That's it. He says we have some of 4 in the can, but not all of it. Barely any. We've begun a franchise at this point. We've begun a saga that can now play out over multiple films. So, there you go. Look, 1.5 billion was a break-even point. I think, this is good for people that love Avatar. So, yay for you. But I think what's perhaps interesting about this as a take-home is just how monumentally insane some of these budgets have truly become. A film needing $1.5 billion to break even is just insane. That is absolute madness. How do you ever justify that? As a filmmaker, the mind boggles. And when you realise what he said about Avatar 3, being that there's like a 9-hour cut of it, all right then, cool, no worries, I guess. To me, that's madness. It's madness that there's a 9-hour cut of a film, because to me it says that the film wasn't written properly. And that's why you end up with really silly things like in Avatar 2, which become plot holes. Like, oh yeah, they're all riding into battle and then one minute they're there and, then the next, they're all gone. And you're like, oh, okay. So clearly something happened here. You wouldn't just write them out of the film. They would just disappear. But this is what happens when you have like a 9-hour cut of a movie and you have to condense it down. That's what happens. Dumb shit like that. Write the film properly and then release it. Edit it properly. Like, you're editing a movie which is, it's a marathon at this point. It's just too long. But anyway, look, the budget's insane, and that also adds to the budget as well. When you are shooting so much stuff that just gets cut down as well. Like, why? So bizarre. But never mind. Love to hear your thoughts. It's broken even. We're going to get sequels. Are you happy? Yay or nay? Drop it down below.